We're back on Inside Tennessee with our panel in-house, getting you set for Election Day. Yes, it should be exciting across the country Tuesday, certainly. The stake of the U.S. Senate and the U.S. House up for grabs. John North, we're going to look to our north and the bluegrass state because there's something there that does have shades of Tennessee. Explain the amendment on their ballot.
It's true. We are usually Tennessee-centric, but what's happening in Kentucky on Tuesday is very interesting. They have what's called an Amendment 2, and it's basically the same language that Tennessee voters addressed in 2014 about abortion. I'll read it specifically. It says, "To protect human life, nothing in this Constitution shall be construed to secure or protect a right to abortion or require the funding of abortion." So a yes vote will say there is no constitutional right in the Kentucky Constitution to an abortion, similar to what voters decided on in 2014, which, as you know, was just part of kind of the dominoes going a particular direction on this issue.
Your observation about this, Don?
Well, I think we've talked about it amongst ourselves. You know, in Tennessee, we don't have the right, or we've not been presented the choice of being able to vote it now, post Roe v. Wade being reversed and the Dobbs decision, to vote that issue again. We have to vote it through our legislators. Who are we going to put in the House and who are we going to put in the state Senate? And it's unfortunate because I think both Susan and I would agree, we don't try to be one issue people. There may be a driving issue for each of us on certain things, but you know, some of these legislators, some conservative, even a few that are not conservative, that are moderate, liberal, call them what you may have a spectrum of views on the issue. I wish we could vote the issue particularly now. I think we'd look more like Kansas, like they did a few months ago, but it'll be interesting in Kentucky because Kentucky, in a lot of ways, politically mirrors Tennessee.
Susan, the majority of the legislature is not just a majority, it's a supermajority. What Republicans say goes in both the House and Senate in Tennessee right now. We've heard rumblings from some Republicans saying the trigger law that exists does need some tweaking. What's your prediction in the coming session? Will we see that happen?
I think we will. There's polling shows that Tennesseans would like to see some exceptions to the abortion law, and so I think we'll see some of that introduced in this General Assembly and maybe pass. Don's right. We have some extreme right conservatives that don't want any exceptions.
But would the governor sign it?
That would be an interesting question. I think if it passes the General Assembly, I think he would. But
or even if he doesn't, he may leave it unsigned.
He might and let it become law. But I think most people would like to see, you know, certainly the life of the mother.
Let's get back to this election and the 4 constitutional amendments that are on the ballot right now. We've talked about them on this broadcast. John North, for our viewers who missed that, these do have a couple of high hurdles to achieve if they are to become codified in the Constitution.
Yeah, there are a couple things that must be addressed, and the biggest one is the arithmetic involving all the votes cast in the governor's race. And so in order for any amendment to pass, it must be at least 50% plus 1 of each of those. So we were talking a little bit before we started on that. It'll be interesting to see if any of them pass.
We are seeing, and we talked about it on this broadcast, that the one that's getting the most attention is Amendment 1. Let's just refresh our viewers and then get the thoughts of our panel. But John, we focused on this for One Inside
We
Tennessee.
did. Bottom line, real quick, there's already a law in the state of Tennessee that says nobody can be forced to join a union. It already exists. It's existed since '47. This would codify it by putting it in, and some other things, into the state Constitution.
And Susan, your take on that, it wouldn't be a bad idea.
Well, I voted yes on that simply because I think it is important for this state. Our economy is booming now, and a lot of it is because we're having major industries move into Tennessee because we are a right-to-work state. Labor unions seem to be getting a little bit more power than they've had in the past 20 years or so, and I think that's what happened with the General Assembly. They wanted to make sure that that law from '47 could not be changed, and it would continue to impact our economy in a positive way.
Don?
Well, I had a veteran legislator once tell me that it's all about the caption. What do you call it? They call this the right to work, and I think that fools a lot of people because it really should be called the right to work for less, and it really does kneecap unions. I grew up in a union family. family, and unions fed me. When my father went on strike as a member of a union, they helped provide food. As a child, babysitting service was actually going out and walking the picket line with my father. My younger brother and I, we didn't really know what was going on, but it does have an influence. So I think this is a really bad idea. We put it in the Constitution. Should we change our mind, it becomes just that much more difficult to amend legislation that we can amend every term of session if we feel it appropriate. I don't like adding things like this to the Constitution. I'd rather take some things out, largely, which is kind of what the other amendments do. But I definitely voted against this on Prop 1.
We'd encourage you to really dissect those amendments and read about them, because it's going to take you some time. If you know how you're going to vote when you walk into the voting booth on Election Day, it's going to make things go a lot more smoothly for you. We're back with some closing thoughts from our panel on this upcoming election right after this.